Okay, so you know how we're always talking about AI learning to talk like us?
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to peek behind the scenes
Oh, cool.
at the data that's making that happen.
Right.
And get this, it involves
Okay.
everyone's favorite group of New York friends.
Oh, Friends.
You got it.
I love Friends.
This data set's called Friends MMC.
Okay.
And it takes things to a whole new level.
How so?
It's all about teaching AI to understand those
Yeah.
complicated
Yeah.
multi-person conversations that we have in real life
Yeah.
using friends as the model.
Oh, wow. That's really neat. So we're not just talking about like simple chat bots here.
Exactly.
We're going way beyond that.
Way beyond. So instead of just focusing on two people chatting,
Mm.
like a typical chatbot situation,
Yeah.
this is more like a group of friends hanging out at Central Park.
Right. With all the interruptions and jokes and reactions.
Oh, that.
That's amazing.
So Friends MMC actually covers all 220 episodes of Friends.
Oh.
And it's been carefully annotated with incredible detail
Like what?
for every single frame.
Oh, wow.
They've identified who's speaking, where their faces are,
Uh-huh.
and even which character each face belongs to.
So they've basically broken down every Friends scene to a microscopic level of
Okay,
detail.
that sounds like a massive undertaking.
That's what?
How did they even pull that off?
Well, it was a meticulous process
Yeah.
involving both automatic and manual steps.
I see.
So they use automatic face detection
Okay.
to find the faces in each frame.
Uh-huh.
And then for the training data,
Yeah.
they used a technique called automatic face labeling.
Interesting.
They started with a bunch of pre-selected face images for each of the main characters.
Oh, cool.
It's kind of like creating a Friends facial recognition system.
So it's like they trained AI to recognize the Friends gang as well as we do.
Precisely. And then to make sure everything was accurate for the test data, they manually checked and labeled all the faces.
Yeah, you don't want the AI learning the wrong names.
Yeah, definitely not. Especially in a show where everyone's so distinct.
Totally.
Hmm.
But tell me more about this sliding window technique.
Right.
What's
yeah.
that all about?
That's how they created realistic conversation segments.
Okay.
They used a sliding window to grab a series of consecutive turns in the dialogue,
Okay.
making sure the timing between turns felt natural.
Okay.
Then they bundled those turns together along with the corresponding video clips,
I see.
creating these little snippets of Friends conversations.
So it's like giving the AI different pieces of the Friends puzzle to work with.
Exactly.
Some smaller, some larger. But now that we have this treasure trove of Friends data, what are researchers actually doing with it?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
They've designed two main tasks to put this data set to the test.
Okay.
First one is called conversation speaker identification.
Hmm.
So basically, they're trying to see if the AI can figure out
Yeah.
who is talking in each turn using both the words
Okay.
and the visual cues from the video.
That sounds like a real challenge.
It is.
Especially if the person talking isn't always visible on screen.
Right.
I mean, think about all those classic Friends scenes where someone's reacting off screen
Yep.
or they're hidden behind a giant Thanksgiving turkey.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a lot more like real life
Oh, yeah,
than just looking at a static image.
for sure.
But that brings us to the second task, conversation response prediction.
Okay.
Can the AI, using both what's been said and what's happening visually, actually predict what someone will say next?
Wow, that's really getting into the nitty-gritty of how conversations work.
It is.
Predicting what Chandler might quip next.
All right.
That's a tough one, even for us diehard Friends fans.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
But let's focus on that first task, conversation speaker identification, for a moment.
Okay.
Remember, the AI might not always have a clear view of who's speaking.
Right, like when Phoebe's delivering one of her hilarious lines from behind a mountain of pottery.
Exactly. So to tackle this challenge, the researchers came up with a clever approach using 3 modules.
Okay.
First, there's a visual model.
Right.
This model analyzes either individual frames
Uh-huh.
or video clips,
Okay.
depending on the input,
Got
if
it.
it's a single frame.
Yeah.
They use a pre-trained facial recognition model
Okay.
that's been fine-tuned to recognize the Friends cast.
Okay.
But when it's a video, they use a sophisticated model called TalkNet.
Hold on. Why use 2 different models for the visual part?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It all comes down to mimicking the way we as humans follow a conversation.
Okay.
So think about it. If you only see a still image of someone,
Yeah.
you can recognize them, but you can't tell if they're actually the one speaking.
Right.
You need movement, those subtle cues like lip movements, to know for sure. And that's exactly what TalkNet does for the AI.
I see.
It helps it pick up on those subtle visual cues, just like you...
That's really interesting. It makes sense that they'd need different approaches for still images versus video.
Right.
But what happens when the person speaking is completely off screen?
Oh, yeah.
Like when we hear Candler's voice, but the camera's focused on Monica's reaction.
You're bringing up a crucial point.
Yeah.
Visual information alone isn't always enough.
Right.
That's where the second module comes in, the text module.
Okay.
This one uses a powerful language model called Deberta v3. Imagine reading 1,000 books and absorbing how people use language in different situations.
Yeah.
That's essentially what Deberta v3 has done.
Okay.
And it uses that knowledge to understand how the friends' characters talk to each other.
So even if a character is off screen, the AI can still use the text model to figure out who is likely speaking.
Exactly.
Based on the style and content of what's being said.
Exactly. It's like being able to recognize your friends' voices even if you can't see them.
Right.
The AI is learning to do the same thing, picking up on patterns.
Like Monica's tendency to correct Ross.
Yeah.
Or Joey's constant food references.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's impressive.
It is.
But I'm a little confused.
Okay.
These two models, the visual and the text, they're working separately, right?
Yeah.
How do they come together to give the AI a complete picture?
That's where the third module comes in.
Okay.
The optimization solver. Think of it as a detective piecing together clues from both a visual and text model.
Okay.
It creates these reward matrices. One, based on how confident the visual model is about who's speaking in each frame. And the other based on the text model's understanding of the relationships between the characters.
Right.
Like a master detective.
Yeah.
The optimization solver analyzes these matrices, weighing the evidence from both sides to make the most accurate prediction about who is speaking in each turn.
Okay, so it's not just blindly trusting one model or the other.
It's doing some serious cross-checking to get the most accurate answer.
Exactly.
I like that. But why go through all this trouble?
Right.
Why not just label every single face in every frame with the character's name?
Right.
Wouldn't that be a lot simpler?
That's a great question, and it highlights a really important point.
Yeah.
Remember, the researchers are trying to create AI that can function in the real world.
Right.
Where facial recognition isn't always perfect.
Yeah?
Think about security cameras or video conferencing. Sometimes the image is blurry, sometimes faces are obscured.
Or like you're at a party trying to figure out who's talking in a crowded room.
Exactly.
I've definitely been there.
By making the AI work a little harder, by forcing it to rely on both visual and textual clues, the researchers are pushing it to develop a more robust and flexible understanding of conversation, one that can handle real-world imperfections.
So it's not just about teaching the AI to spot Monica or Chandler. It's about teaching it to understand the deeper dynamics of how people communicate, even when the information isn't perfect.
Yes.
That's fascinating.
It really is.
What stands out to you so far about how the researchers designed this data set?
Well, I think it's remarkable how much thought went into making it as realistic as possible.
Right.
It's not just about feeding the AI lines from friends. It's about creating this complete sensory experience with visuals, audio, and text all working together.
They really have tried to capture the richness of real-world conversations.
They have.
That's what makes this data set so valuable.
It does. It really does.
For pushing the boundaries of AI research.
Absolutely. But before we get too carried away with the big picture, let's dive back into the specifics.
Okay.
Remember those two tasks we talked about?
Yes.
Well, we've only scratched the surface of how they actually tested the AI's ability to understand friends' conversations.
Okay. I'm definitely intrigued. We've talked about how the AI tries to identify the speaker.
Right.
But what about that second task?
Yeah.
Conversation response prediction.
Yes.
Does knowing who is speaking actually help the AI predict what will be said next?
That's what the researchers wanted to find out.
Okay.
And their hypothesis was that knowing the speaker could be helpful in two key ways.
Okay.
First, it might allow the AI to pick up on each speaker's unique style and tendencies.
Oh, okay, I see.
Like if you know Chandler is about to speak,
yeah,
you might expect a sarcastic quip.
Right. And if it's Phoebe, You might brace yourself for a quirky story or a song about smelly cats.
Exactly. The second way speaker information might help is by making it clear whose perspective the next response should come from.
Right, so it's like knowing who's holding the talking stick in a group discussion.
It is.
So how did the researchers test this hypothesis?
Well, they took a slightly different approach.
Okay.
And this is where things get really interesting.
Oh, this is where it gets fun.
Oh.
Did they swap everyone's personalities?
Yeah.
Make Rachel sound like Ross.
You're on the right track. In the first version, they randomly assigned speaker names to each utterance.
Okay.
So picture a Friends episode where Chandler suddenly starts talking like Phoebe.
Okay.
And Monica sounds like Joey.
Okay, now I need to see that alternate reality episode.
Right.
But seriously, why jumble up the names like that?
They did it to see how much the AI relied on knowing who was speaking versus just understanding the words themselves. They wanted to see if messing with the speaker information would throw the AI off.
That's a clever way to test it.
It is.
So did they find that the AI was completely lost when the names were all mixed up?
Well, the results were quite revealing, and we'll dive into those in more detail after a quick break.
Okay, sounds good.
Stay tuned. Welcome back.
Okay, so
before we took a pause, we were talking about how the researchers really shook things up.
Yeah.
By scrambling the speaker names in the Friends dataset.
Right, it's like they hit the shuffle button on the characters' personalities.
Exactly.
But I'm really curious to hear how the AI actually handled these mixed-up conversations.
Sure.
Did it completely lose the plot?
The findings were fascinating.
Okay.
But before we dive into the results,
Yeah.
let's talk about how they measured the AI's performance on this conversation response prediction task.
Okay.
Remember, it's not about getting the AI to generate the exact next line word for word.
Right.
It's more about seeing if it can pick the most likely response.
Oh, so you're telling me the AI isn't actually coming up with its own responses from scratch?
Right.
It's just picking from a list.
Yes.
How does that really test its understanding of the conversation?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It might seem a little simplistic, but it actually forces the AI to make choices based on limited information, just like we often do in real conversations. We don't always have all the time in the world to craft the perfect response, right?
Right.
We have to go with what feels right in the moment.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I guess I just assumed the AI was coming up with those witty Chandler-esque comebacks all on its own.
Yeah.
So how do they evaluate how well the AI was doing at picking the right response?
They used a metric called perplexity.
Perplexity, okay.
Basically, perplexity is a way of measuring how surprised the AI is by each possible response.
Okay.
The lower the perplexity score, the more the response makes sense to the AI.
Gotcha.
Given the context of the conversation.
Okay, so lower perplexity equals a better prediction.
Exactly.
Got it. But how do they factor in those scrambled speaker names we talked about earlier?
Right.
Did they run this test with all those different versions of the data set?
They did.
Okay.
They ran the experiment with 4 different versions.
Okay.
The original data set with the correct names, the one with randomly assigned names, the version where only the final speaker name was correct, and finally that secret code version where the names were consistently shuffled throughout the conversation.
Wow, it's getting complex.
I know, right?
But I'm guessing that having some kind of speaker information, even the scrambled kind, probably led to better predictions overall.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
They found that giving the AI some information about who was speaking, even if it wasn't perfectly accurate, consistently resulted in lower perplexity scores.
So even a little bit of knowledge about the speakers went a long way.
Yes.
But what about that really strange version?
Right?
The one where they consistently swapped the names.
Yes.
Did that throw the AI off completely?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Remember, in that version, Ross might always be labeled as Joey, and Joey as Chandler.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole conversation.
Right. It's like they created a secret code for the AI to crack.
Exactly.
I'm dying to know, did the AI figure it out?
The results were pretty surprising.
Okay.
They found that even with these consistently shuffled names, the AI was still able to make significantly better predictions compared to when it had no speaker information at all.
Okay.
In fact, using that secret code version actually led to the most accurate predictions overall.
Whoa, hold on. That's kind of mind-blowing.
It is pretty amazing.
It means the AI was somehow able to learn the patterns of the conversation.
Yes.
Even when the names didn't match the characters' personalities.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But also a little bit creepy, isn't it?
It is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It suggests that there's something fundamental about the structure of conversations, the way we take turns, build on each other's ideas, and respond to cues that goes beyond just recognizing individual personalities.
This is making me think about those classic Friends scenes where they're all talking over each other, finishing each other's sentences.
Yeah.
And somehow it all makes sense.
Right.
Maybe the AI is tapping into that same kind of unspoken communication.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
This research might be showing us that AI doesn't necessarily need to understand every nuance of a personality to grasp how a conversation flows.
Okay. I need to process this for a minute.
Sure.
So the AI doesn't need to know that Chandler is sarcastic. It just needs to know that Chandler is the one talking at that moment.
Exactly.
That's a huge shift in how I think about AI and conversation.
It really is a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
It highlights how much we rely on the structure and dynamics of conversation to understand each other.
Yeah.
And it challenges our assumptions about AI needing to mimic human personalities perfectly.
So this Friends MMC dataset is doing much more than just teaching AI to predict punchlines.
It is.
It's revealing something deeper about the very nature of communication.
Yes.
Something that applies to all of us, not just the Friends gang.
Right.
This is getting pretty philosophical.
It is, isn't it?
I'm really starting to appreciate how much thought went into designing these experiments.
Me too.
But if knowing the speaker is so crucial, did the researchers actually test how well the AI was performing on that first task?
Right.
The conversation speaker identification.
They did.
I mean, if it's constantly getting the speaker wrong, wouldn't that mess up its ability to predict what comes next?
You're anticipating the next step perfectly.
Okay, good.
They did address that potential pitfall.
Yeah.
Remember that multi-module system they developed for speaker identification with the visual model, the text model, and the optimization solver.
Right. It's like the AI's own personal Sherlock Holmes piecing together clues to figure out who's speaking.
Well, to make things even more realistic, they tested how the AI would perform on the response prediction task when using its own speaker predictions, which of course wouldn't always be 100% accurate.
So instead of feeding the AI the correct speaker names, they used the names as predicted by its own speaker identification system.
That's right. They wanted to see how the AI would handle a situation where it didn't have perfect information.
Right.
Kind of like how we often have to navigate real-world conversations.
That's a really clever way to simulate real-world conditions.
What is?
So did the AI's imperfections completely derail its ability to predict responses?
The results were actually quite encouraging.
Okay.
Even when relying on its own sometimes flawed speaker predictions, the AI still performed significantly better than when it was given no speaker information at all.
So even though it wasn't always getting the speaker right, having some clue about who was talking was still a huge advantage.
Precisely. It's like when you're trying to follow a conversation in a noisy environment, you might mishear a name or two.
Yeah.
But as long as you have a general sense of who is speaking, you can usually still follow the gist of what's being said.
This is really making me think about how much we take for granted in human communication.
Yeah.
Our brains are constantly filtering out noise, filling in gaps.
Right.
And using context to make sense of what you're hearing.
Exactly.
It's amazing how much is going on beneath the surface.
It really is.
And this research with the Friends MMC dataset highlights just how challenging it is to replicate those subtle, almost intuitive aspects of human communication in AI.
It does.
We've been focusing on these two specific tasks.
Yeah.
Speaker identification and response prediction.
Right.
But what about all those other layers of communication that we haven't even touched on?
Right.
Things like sarcasm, humor, emotion.
Yes.
Could a data set like Friends MMC also be used to teach AI about those more nuanced aspects of conversation?
You've just opened the door to a whole new realm of possibilities.
Okay.
Remember, the Friends MMC dataset isn't just about words and names. It's about the entire visual and audio context of the conversation.
Yeah.
They've captured facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, even the setting and mood of each scene.
So in theory, you could use this data set to teach AI to recognize a sarcastic Chandler eye roll.
You could.
Or a comforting Phoebe hug.
Exactly. And that opens up incredible opportunities for creating AI that can not only understand what we say, but also how we say it.
Right.
And what we're feeling as we say it.
Okay, now I'm really getting excited.
I know, me too.
Imagine a virtual assistant that can actually pick up on your tone of voice and tell if you're having a bad day.
Yes.
Or a chatbot that can understand your jokes.
Right.
Even the bad ones.
We might not be at the understanding bad joke stage just yet.
Okay.
But you're right, the potential here is immense.
Yeah.
This research is laying the groundwork for AI that can interact with us on a much deeper, more human level.
But before we get too carried away with future fantasies,
right,
let's take a moment to consider some of the wider implications of this research.
Yes, let's do that.
So we're back. And I don't know about you, but my mind is kind of blown.
Mine too.
Just thinking about all the implications of what we've been talking about.
I know, it's incredible.
It really is.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we've been talking about how this data set is helping AI understand the subtle nuances of conversation, from recognizing speakers to predicting responses.
Right.
But what about the bigger picture? How could this technology actually change the world?
That's the question everyone's asking, right?
Right.
One area where this technology has enormous potential is in the field of human-robot interaction.
You mean robots that can actually understand our social cues?
Exactly.
Wow. Not just respond to commands, but actually participate in conversations and understand things like humor and sarcasm.
You got it.
That's crazy.
Imagine robots that can seamlessly integrate into our lives.
Okay.
Assisting us in a variety of settings.
Like what?
We could have robots helping out in homes, hospitals, schools, even workplaces.
Oh, wow.
They could provide companionship care, education, and even entertainment, all while adapting to the unique dynamics of each social group.
So it's like having a robotic friend.
Kind of.
Who always gets the social memo.
Right.
Never makes an inappropriate joke.
Yeah.
And always knows how to read the room.
Exactly.
Sign me up.
I think we're all eager to see how this technology unfolds.
Yeah.
But the potential applications extend far beyond just robots.
Oh, really? Like what?
Think about how this could revolutionize the way we interact with computers and virtual assistants.
So instead of just setting reminders and playing music, my virtual assistant could actually understand my needs and preferences.
Exactly.
On a deeper level.
On a deeper level.
They could be more like collaborators.
Yes.
Than just tools.
That's the idea.
Okay, wow. Imagine a virtual assistant.
Yeah.
That can actively participate in a meeting. Taking notes, identifying different speakers.
Yeah.
And even contributing its own insights and ideas.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Wait, so instead of just saying, I didn't understand that.
Yeah. Right.
My virtual assistant could actually follow along with a complex conversation.
Yeah.
And offer helpful suggestions.
Exactly.
That would be a game changer.
It would be.
Especially for remote teams. And online collaboration.
It would completely transform the way we work and learn.
Yeah.
And think about the possibilities for online education.
Okay.
We could have AI tutors that can provide personalized support to students.
Wow.
Adapt to their learning styles. And even facilitate group projects and discussions.
Like having a personalized AI tutor who can also keep everyone on task.
Yeah.
And make sure no one feels lost or left out.
Right.
That's a really powerful application of this technology.
It is, and it highlights how AI could be used to make education more accessible and equitable for everyone.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
But the implications extend even further.
Oh, okay, further than that.
Imagine using this technology to analyze and understand real-world conversations in a variety of contexts.
Like what? Like analyzing political debates?
Yeah.
To see who is really making sense?
Exactly.
Okay. Or using AI to study how people interact in courtrooms or during business negotiations.
Precisely. We could use AI to identify patterns of communication, detect biases, and even track the spread of information and misinformation.
And this could be valuable for who?
This could be incredibly valuable for researchers, policymakers, and anyone trying to understand how communication shapes our world.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the vast potential of this research.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
We've gone from talking about friends
I know.
to robots, virtual assistants, and even the future of education and research.
And it all stems from this simple yet powerful idea.
What's that?
That by studying the way humans communicate, we can teach machines to understand and interact with us on a much deeper level.
It's almost poetic in a way.
It is.
We're using this iconic sitcom, Friends, to unlock the secrets of human connection.
Yeah.
And those insights are paving the way for a future where AI can not only understand us, but also collaborate with us, learn from us, and maybe even teach us a thing or two.
This Friends MMC dataset is a reminder that even the most complex human behaviors like conversation can be broken down and understood. And as we continue to push the boundaries of AI research, we're getting closer to creating AI that is not just intelligent, but also truly human compatible.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
It has been.
We've explored some truly mind-blowing concepts today.
Yeah, we have.
And I have to say, I'm leaving this conversation feeling incredibly optimistic.
Me too.
About the future of AI.
Yeah.
And its potential to make our world a more connected and understanding place.
I share your optimism. It's crucial that we continue to explore this technology thoughtfully and responsibly.
Absolutely.
But the possibilities are truly inspiring. So the next time you're watching an episode of Friends, take a moment to appreciate the intricate dance of conversation unfolding on the screen.
Okay.
You might just be witnessing the seeds of a new era in AI.
Wow.
One where machines not only understand our words, but also grasp the deeper unspoken connections that make us human.
And who knows, maybe one day AI will even be able to create its own sitcom.
It's possible.
One that's just as funny, heartwarming, and insightful as Friends.
Maybe. Until then, we'll keep exploring the fascinating world of AI research one deep dive at a time.
That sounds like a plan.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening, everyone.